Hi, everybody. I'm looking in the chat. I see we have lots of faculty here, so that's fantastic. And I'm happy to present to you today OSCQR 4.0. It's brand new in a sense that OSCQR's been around since 2013, but OSCQR 4.0 is our fourth version of the rubric, and we have some great updates to share. Today, in this session, in addition to Erin Maney from SUNY Online, we also have Alexandra Pickett. She is the Director of Online Teaching for SUNY Online. And so let's dig into it. I'm going to share my screen with everybody. And okay, so we're going to talk about OSCQR 4.0, and the newest updates center mostly around our support, OSCQR's support of regular and substantive interaction. So let's talk a little bit first about what is OSCQR, because some in the room might not know what OSCQR is. So OSCQR is essentially a lens for us to apply to online courses to review the course and look for best practices in instructional design. So as I know you can read the slides, so there are some unique features of the OSCQR rubric compared to other course design rubrics that you may be aware of, such as the Quality Matters rubric or the Chico rubric. And I'm going to show you a little video that'll give you a complete overview of OSCQR. It's brand new, and it will be the world premiere of our video overview of OSCQR 4.0. So I'll show you that in a second. But essentially, what we wanted to do was to create an instrument for both faculty and support staff to be able to look at an online course with no students in it, and look at and make sure that the course matches up to some established standards of best practices in online teaching. So the course does not evaluate, I'm sorry, the rubric does not evaluate courses. It really just helps us identify areas for improvement. So as you can see in the slide, continuous improvement is really the focus of the OSCQR rubric. And we encourage campuses to use it for not only for faculty to assess their own courses, but to also set up a peer review process in which faculty can look at each other's courses, and instructional designers can share their insights around continuous improvement of online courses. So there are 50 standards in it. We will take a little peek at the rubric itself and a lot of the resources we've built around it. And another thing that needs to be pointed out about the OSCQR rubric, and this is certainly part of OSCQR 4.0, is that it's openly licensed. It's editable, and anyone can adapt it and use it for their own needs. So let's just take a look at what OSCQR 4.0, what we've done with OSCQR 4.0 as opposed to the previous versions. We've kept almost all of the functionality, I should say all of the functionality of the previous rubrics for those of you who have used the OSCQR rubric. So there is still a PDF available for self-assessment, and that is retrieved through the Online Learning Consortium, which is a national institution for quality in online instruction, and they have adopted it as their scorecard. So there is a PDF version available for you, as well as a Google Sheet version for you. And we'll take a peek at both of those so you can see what the differences are there. And we also have for administrators and for instructional designers, those who are going to oversee several course reviews, there we have a tool called the Oscar Dashboard, which we'll also take a look at. So the last two bullets here are really about where 4.0 has sort of taken the Oscar rubric a little bit further. And we've updated the wording of standards to address something called RSI, regular and substantive interaction. And we've also updated the annotations of the rubric. So right now I'm going to show you a little video of the Oscar 4.0 rubric. I think it lasts a little bit more than 4 minutes, but it gives a really good overview. It was just completed, so this is the world premiere of the Oscar 4.0 video. So I'm just gonna jump out of here for a second and launch this.
SUNY Online has developed an online course design rubric and process that addresses both the instructional design and accessibility of an online course that is openly licensed for anyone to use and adapt. The aim of the SUNY Online Course Quality Review, or OSCQR, rubric and process is to support continuous improvements to the quality and accessibility of online courses, while also providing a systematic approach to collect data across campuses, institutions, departments, and programs. This data can be used to inform faculty development and support large-scale online course design, review, and refresh efforts consistently. There are two components, the OSCQR process and the OSCQR rubric. The OSCQR process provides a framework and a dashboard to support a campus-tailored and scalable approach to improving the instructional design and accessibility of online or blended courses. There are 3 parts to the process. The online course review, using the OSCQR rubric, yields an action plan that informs the online course refresh process by targeting areas for improvements. After the identified areas have been refreshed and implemented, the learning review closes the continuous improvement loop to confirm the success of the changes made and the development of a plan for the next set of improvements. The dashboard is housed in Google Drive, which allows for free storage and collaboration. It automates campus-level review efforts and accommodates customized rubrics by managing all the rubrics for the institution. Built-in analytics track course review progress and can be used to identify online course design trends. Working with multi-institutional teams of SUNY Online instructional designers, librarians, distance learning directors, technologists, and accessibility experts, SUNY Online staff started with 20 years of SUNY Learning Network research-informed best online practices, the Chico rubric, Universal Learning Design Principles, the SUNY Office of General Counsel's Memorandum on Accessibility Considerations, and conducted a gap analysis with Quality Matters, iNicole, and Blackboard exemplary courses. The resulting 50 standards in the rubric target online instructional design and incorporate the community of inquiry model, the 7 principles of good practice in undergraduate education, the adult learner, Bloom's taxonomy, how people learn, and has been mapped to the SUNY Online fundamental and core competencies for online course design. OSCQR is the first online course quality rubric that specifically addresses the U.S. Department of Education regulation requirements for regular and substantive interaction, RSI, in the design of online courses. OSCQR can be leveraged by faculty, instructional designers, departments, and institutions to assist in planning, designing, improving, documenting, and implementing online courses and programs that are in compliance with RSI regulations. OSCQR standards guide online course design and refresh efforts, as well as faculty development activities to support RSI compliance in new online course development and review of existing online courses. OSCQR standards can be used by online faculty and instructional designers in faculty self-assessments, faculty training activities, resource materials, course reviews, as recommendations and standards to support and document how the online course meets the RSI requirements. The rubric is easy to use, flexible, non-evaluative, requires no storage space, can be customized, and can be implemented in a variety of ways. As part of an online faculty development and online course design professional development process, as an online faculty self-assessment, as part of an online course quality review process by online instructional designers, as a faculty peer review process, in a multidisciplinary collaborative team review model. The rubric also produces an action plan, allows for prioritization of standards, estimates amount of time to make improvements, offers suggestions and examples for improvements, accommodates modification and addition of standards. The 50 OSCQR rubric standards also integrate specific ways to make an online course accessible to students with disabilities and specific suggestions for ensuring regular and substantive interaction in online course design. OSCQR was adopted by the Online Learning Consortium in 2016 and is featured as the online course quality rubric in their suite of online quality scorecards. The SUNY Online OSCQR rubric is flexible, customizable, research-based, openly licensed for anyone to use and adapt, and nationally recognized. It is currently being used by 56 SUNY institutions and thousands of non-SUNY institutions and individuals. For more information on SUNY Online and OSCQR, visit oscqr.suny.edu.
Whoops. There it is. So I hope you like the video. We like it. But there it is. It does the video does a really good job of giving an overview of OSCQR. It will be available on our website shortly. So as I mentioned, for those of you who just came in, it's sort of like the world premiere of our OSCQR 4.0 video. And since I have it right here, I launched some of the tools that were mentioned in the video and that I mentioned before. This is here our PDF version of the OSCQR rubric of OSCQR 4.0. And as you can see, kind of difficult to see up top here, but I downloaded it. It downloads to my hard drive, and I can fill it in for self-assessment. So if I wanted to share it, I'd have to share it as a document. It's not inherently a shared document itself. And as you can see, it is the OLC quality scorecard, part of the OLC quality scorecard suite. Here is the OSCQR rubric in Google format, and just brief sort of tour of it. On the cover sheet, it asks some specific questions around that gives parameters to the course. Is it part of a cohort or sequence? How many semesters has been offered? Just some relevant information. This is just one screen here, so it's not an exhaustive amount of information that a faculty member needs to fill out. But down at the bottom here, you'll be able to see the different tabs accommodate collaboration. And this is fully editable for anybody who downloads it. I should say for anyone who generates it, because it lives in the cloud. It's not something you download to your hard drive. And because it's a Google Sheet, it has all of the Google functionality in terms of sharing it, keeping it private if you wish, but it enables collaboration. So as we can see down here, the first tab was the course profile. The second tab is for the instructional designer. The third tab for faculty, fourth tab for an additional reviewer, and the last tab is the action plan, which aggregates all of the information that was created in, let's say, the first 3 reviews or the prior reviews. So it in the action plan, really what we want, people to look at, it does not generate a score. Different than other rubrics, there's no score attached to it. What it generates is a time, an estimated time to fix any of the problems that have been identified. So this helps in resource allocation and time management. So in any case, this is the OSCQR rubric in its Google format. Next, as I run my cursor over each standard, I see some annotation. And if I need ideas for addressing this standard, I have the link all the way over to the right, which brings me to the website. Now, for some reason, this website was not opening for me in, oh, it's opening now, great, in Google. So I go, this brings me right to the oscar.suny.edu website, which is our resource website for the OSCQR rubric. And anytime I need an idea for a standard, each link to the right of that standard gives me lots of resources from our website. Again, it's oscar.suny.edu. And for each standard, there is information, an extended annotation of that standard, an explanation. Sometimes the actual standard itself, despite our wordsmithing efforts, might not be fully comprehensible to the end user. So we have full explanation through annotation. Then we have refresh ideas, some suggestions. We have related resources, and we also have a spot where end users can add comments. So we encourage suggestions to continuously improve the rubric itself. And on this site at oscar.suny.edu, we're able to see lots of information about OSCQR. This has all been updated for OSCQR 4.0. And I'm just going to click the chat real quick, see if does rubric apply equally to asynchronous, hybrid, and high flex courses. It does in that, let me show you, we sort of conceived of that a long time ago when we actually created the rubric. So I'm just going to draw you back to some of the inherent functionality of the OSCQR rubric, in that what you next to for each standard, as you look at a course, you can determine whether it's sufficiently present, whether that standard is sufficiently present in what you're looking at in the instructional design, whether there's a minor revision to be made, a moderate revision, or a major revision. These adjectives really describe the amount of time it's going to take, not the severity, if you will, of any issues. But we also have here not applicable. So we thought of that when thinking about some courses are 1-credit courses. And oh, there you go. Alex is in the chat as well, answering questions. And so if something is let's say a hybrid course, and things are lots of these pieces of information, or lots of these standards are going to be addressed in the face-to-face, perhaps they're not present in the online course portion, and so some of these might not be applicable. On the course profile tab, there is, it would be here where you'd be able to describe in the course description whether this is high flex, blended, or otherwise. So there you go. Alex, I hear you talking about the action plan tab. And yeah, right here, we can prioritize the standards in the action plan tab where,
Someone was asking Rob
sure,
about being able to adjust the action plan in terms of priorities and so forth. And so it's one of the features, the intentional design features of OSCQR, that an institution or an ID or an individual could create customized priorities to the use case. So your nursing courses might have different priorities than your undergraduate philosophy courses, let's say. And then we preset things based on our, needs and how we're using it, but created it intentionally so that you could, change that for your varied use cases, including the time to fix. We have a point of view about how long things should take to fix, but you might have a different point of view, so you can adjust that to your needs.
Thanks, Alex. In addition to our website, oscar.suny.edu, we have there's lots here, and I don't have time to go through it all. But what you should know is how to get OSCQR. And so if I click on the OSCQR rubric, if you want to get a version for yourself, again, the website is oscar.suny.edu. You have the ability to download the PDF that I showed you. This the second link will generate an actual Google rubric for you. There's just a little bit of information to fill out, course name and your email, and you'll receive a link to that Google Sheet in your email. And then there's a third link called the Generate an OSCQR dashboard. And as I mentioned before, the dashboard is for if you are going to manage several rubrics at once. So what you have on the screen in front of you here is the OSCQR 4.0 dashboard. And as you can see, I loaded up 3 courses. I generated rubrics for 3 different courses. And each of there's a link to each of these rubrics from the dashboard. And what you can see is it generates analytics around the completion of each of those rubrics. So if I have an instructional designer, a faculty member, and maybe another reviewer in this romantic literature course, the instructional designer finished, the faculty member still has a ways to go, and the reviewer is almost half done. And so the dashboard helps us manage several rubrics. It's designed for instructional designers and anyone who intends to generate rubrics for and moderate, and manage those that activity on a campus. So this is sort of our campus level view of what's happening with course reviews. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, let me go back to my slideshow here, because as I mentioned, one of the main changes around the OSCQR rubric center on RSI, regular and substantive interaction. So what is RSI? And what it is interaction that needs to be instructor sort of centered in the design of it. So the interaction must be with the instructor, initiated by the instructor, scheduled and predictable, as well as academic in nature. So this is a federal regulation, by the way. I'll get into that in a second, but I'd like to define it first. So it should be visible in the instructional design of an online course. So it should include at least two of the following. You see it here: direct instruction, assessment or feedback, information about the course content. What the regulation wants to ensure is that the instructor has set up predictable interactions with students, and that students will regularly interact with the instructor around course content. So we've created this graphic here. Actually, this was created by Empire State College, and we have permission to adopt it for these presentations, as well as for the rubric itself. And it does a good job of creating a visual of sort of the spectrum from correspondence courses to fully asynchronous interactive courses with that we deliver here in SUNY. So as you can see, to the right of everything, the instructor is very engaged. In a correspondence course, not so much. There's lots of on the student side, there's lots of engagement with the content, with the assessments, but not much engagement with the instructor. Regular and substantive interaction implies that there will be consistent interaction and engagement with the instructor in a fully online course. So what's at stake? Well, Title IV funding. Okay, so here's some of the actual wording in regard to RSI. An institution is not eligible to participate in Title IV programs if 50% or more of its students are enrolled in correspondence courses. So this is a real sort of federal requirement, and we wanted to make sure that anyone conducting that course reviews happening with the OSCQR rubric address this requirement directly. And I'll show you where the OSCQR 4.0 rubric does that. So as I mentioned, Cheryl's question, and this has come up before. What exactly is a correspondence course? So I do consider that a pretty compelling question, Cheryl. Cheryl's question in the chat is, would you consider a correspondence course same as asynchronous self-paced course? I think as we're defining it here, and Alex, if you want to jump in, that's great too. As we're defining it here, yes, I would. In that there is no regular or substantive interaction with the instructor. So
yeah,
Alex,
that's right, Rob.
Yeah.
The federal regulation really is aimed at distinguishing between what they're calling correspondence courses and what we would know as interactive, cohort-based, what they call now traditional online asynchronous instruction. So yeah, an asynchronous course that is self-paced would be considered a correspondence course according to this regulation. So what it's really trying to do is to help the Department of Education understand and distinguish the offerings at institutions for the purposes of financial aid. So it's a very narrow lens and purpose for this regulation. And that's why it's talking specifically about instructor initiated and predictable interaction as the metric, the way to evaluate the difference between an online course and a correspondence course. Of course, an online course that only has instructor-initiated interaction is not best practice, right? So it's not saying that you only have to have instructor initiated interaction that's regular and predictable. It's saying for the purposes of this regulation, if you get audited, they're going to want to know how the how that course responds to the RSI regulation. So again, it doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you would want to have in a high quality online experience. Of course, we know that student-to-student interaction and student-initiated interaction is highly important in the quality of an online course. But for the purposes of this regulation, it's really narrowly looking at instructor-initiated interaction.
So Kathleen's question here in the chat as well is, very relevant to what Alex just said, in terms of would a discussion board change that? So is the presence of a discussion board good enough?
It's
So
insufficient for RSI. What would make a discussion board meet that requirement would be if it is initiated by the instructor and if there is a sense of predictability. So for example, if you the instructor would have to say that we're going to discuss whatever during this time frame, and it has to be faculty led, not student led. So that's not saying that you shouldn't have student-led interaction in your course. It's just saying that for the purposes of this regulation, you need to have some things in the course that are instructor initiated. And if you're using a discussion for this, an asynchronous discussion for this, it has to be something that the instructor initiates, facilitates, and that is predictable. So it's something that they know is going to happen. It's in the schedule, it's, in the announcements, and they know that during this time frame, they're going to be talking with the instructor about this particular topic.
And I would just add to that too, what could get us closer as in discussion board design would be, as Alex mentioned, that predictable element. If the instructor defines his or her role in the discussion.
So PackBack, there's a question there from Wendy.
Yeah,
PackBack does not meet the regulation. It's a great tool. This doesn't say don't have PackBack, but it's not sufficient. So you would need to have other types of instructor initiated predictable interaction in the course other than whatever you're doing with PackBack.
Okay, so I know all of you have had opportunity to look at this slide here, and it really just reinforces what Alex has been saying about regular, predictable, and scheduled interaction with students. When that's clear in the instructional design of the course, it gets us closer to meeting the RSI requirement. So, and again, it is about the instructor promptly and proactively engaging in that interaction. So what we did was we had a work group, and we reviewed all of the standards to make sure that wherever we could address this RSI requirement now. And we also created a dedicated page on the OSCQR website to clarify and target DSI. So I have 10 more minutes. So let me show you some of the changes that we've made to some of our resources here. So in our website, you'll notice now that if you visited us before, I mean, you wouldn't have seen it because we've just recently added this graphic that I mentioned before that we looked at on one of the slides that sort of denotes any of the standards that directly address RSI. So you'll also see this on the rubric itself. So let me just show you. This is OSCQR 4.0 added. You'll see that it adds this graphic for regular and substantive interaction, which is also a hot link to an explanation of a hot link to our page on oscar.suny.edu. So I'll just scroll down and I'll show you, of the 50 standards, which ones, how many actually address RSI, either the standard itself or the annotations for the standard. Yes, thank you, Alex. So some sections more than others, content and activities, but you can see in the interaction section, there's lots, as well as the assessment and feedback. So there's lots to work with here in terms of tightening up our courses and making sure, with the OSCQR 4.0 rubric, ensuring that we meet those RSI standards. So all of these, so let's just go to the page itself to see what kind of explanation there is. And there is, adding to, what I said, there is some, it gets a little more granular in terms of just making sure that it's understood what compliance actually means with some of these regulations. So, and then as we go further down, there's some definitions. And as well as more explanation with some of the wording that you just saw in some of the slides that I just offered up. So, so this is the actual regular and substantive interaction page. I'm not sure which page this is on. Yeah, so this on this section of oscar.suny.edu, this lays out all of the standards that address RSI. And here are ones that could be leveraged to support and articulate RSI. These are all hot links to the actual standards themselves. Again, I'm under this link, regular and substantive interaction, RSI standards. Here's an explanation of how OSCQR supports RSI. And here are some references and resources for regular and substantive interaction. So there's lots here, and again, this is sort of the this is what's new in OSCQR. This is very much part of the 4.0, and I have 5 minutes left, so I'd like to know if you guys have any questions for me or for Alex around OSCQR 4.0.
This is Vicki. If I may ask a question.
Sure.
I was considering designing an extra credit opportunity into one of my discussions where if they provided a link to an article that they thought really was applicable to their discussion and then explain why, would that be something that would help meet this requirement? It's an asynchronous course.
Is there a follow-up activity? Like, are you going to provide feedback to them?
I was considering that would be important because I would have to evaluate what they thought was important and why, and then I could help guide them perhaps to better sources or congratulate them on finding something really valuable.
Well, I would say if, it's predictable, it's scheduled.
But it's not all the students. That's why I was going to design it as extra credit, like kind of optional.
Yeah, I'm not sure where extra credit activities fall in the RSI requirements.
If that's the only thing you have in your course that is interactive with the students, it doesn't meet the requirement because it's not for all of the students, and it seems like an aside, not a main activity in the course. RSI really is, and I'm not sure what your context is or what your discipline is, but if your course is an asynchronous self-paced course, it doesn't mean that self-paced courses are bad or wrong. It just means that they don't meet this requirement. And if that's a question or an issue, you probably should talk to folks on your campus about it. But this is really the way that the Department of Education has to distinguish between online education, as we would consider it, and correspondence courses for the purposes of financial aid. So it's that very, very narrow lens. And we just want to make sure that campuses and instructional designers and faculty are aware of this regulation, so that if you are teaching online and if your campus has online programs and online students and online educational opportunities for people, that they're aware of the regulations so that they can prepare in the event that there's ever a question from the Department of Education about how the program or the course or the institution is meeting this regulation. So it's just important to be aware of it and to talk with your institution about it. I mean, there are many valid use cases for correspondence courses or what we would call, self-paced courses. So yeah.
Yeah, I had thought of that because I also have office hours, which are scheduled, and but not all the students attend. And I noticed that office hours are among the recommendations.
Yes. Yep.
So I thought that might be in that classification, but I guess because it's an extra credit, is that why?
I think that if you offer it, if that's the only thing that you have, that
No, it's not. I will say it's not the only thing I have.
Okay, so then you
array.
could make the case that is instructor initiated and that it's scheduled and predictable.
Okay. All right. Well, something to think about. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I have an additional question. This is Suzanne Buffamonte. I'm just thrown perhaps by some of the language being used. I've taught online since 2005. I teach freshmen and sophomores, and the backbone of my course is discussion. I participate 5 days a week, and I respond, and I get my students to respond to one another and to me, but I don't have anything that I would consider to be formal and predictable, and I just do it, and we just interact. And so I'm wondering, is that simply something that is enough, or do I have to have formal statements saying, I will respond to you within so many hours? And I just don't know about the coverage of, am I doing it okay or not?
So I think you are probably doing it fine, and you would be able to make the case that you are there and present and interactive. What I would suggest is that you have a statement in your syllabus or somewhere in your course information that helps students understand, how you are addressing that. And you can actually use the words regular and substantive interaction. And so, if you have office hours, or if you have a discussion that you've set up that you are leading around the expectations of the course, or around providing feedback on a project for the course, or around, as you described, just topics, right? That there's a schedule that has those topics listed and the time frames, and you're participating in them. You're in compliance with that particular regulation and many other effective practices in online instruction, right?
Thank you for the clarification. The official side of it just sort of creeps me out a little.
It's a little bit weird because it is a regulation and it's very specific and it has a very, very narrow lens, right? It's for the purposes of determining whether or not the institution qualifies for financial aid, right? Like they could take the financial aid away if they determine that what the institution is doing is correspondence as opposed to online education. So it's important. And this came out the end of July 2021. So instructional designers should be aware, campuses should be aware, faculty should be aware. But for the most part, those of us who've been teaching online in a interactive way would be, like I would say in SUNY, I don't know of any correspondence courses. There may be, but I don't, the general model is not that, right? So I would say that anyone would be able to make the case that they have regular and substantive interaction. But you want to make sure and you want to prepare, and adding a statement in your syllabus can help, adding some information in, how you get contacted or how you're doing, just having that awareness in how you present some of that information in the design of your course can help. And OSCQR is intended to assist in that, in building awareness and in giving you examples of how you might do it. But again, OSCQR is much broader than RSI, and online course quality is much broader than RSI. There's a lot that goes into a high quality online experience for faculty and students, broader than regular and substantive interaction. But with this version of OSCQR, we wanted to create that lens to help prepare faculty, instructional designers, and campuses to be able to meet or address this requirement, because it is one.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We
Oh,
have
I see one in the chat.
some syllabus language. Let me find it for you, where you can. I actually have a template. If you go to the Get OSCQR page, you will see that there is a link to an OSCQR-informed online course syllabus, and in there is language that addresses not only RSI but also DEI, and it's a good template. It's OSCQR infused, and it's free to use, adaptable. It's openly licensed. All of this stuff is openly licensed, free to use, adaptable.
I'd just like to take this time, because I know we're at the end of the session, to thank everybody for coming. Thank you, Alex. As always, great stuff. And thank you, Erin, as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob, for sharing all this information with us today. Just want to point out to folks that we have our spring series on the website that I posted in the chat. I'll put that in there again. And you can get the recordings of all of the webinars for this semester so far. Today's recording will be posted there, and I will also post the transcript. We had a hard time downloading that, or saving that, so I will post that file with the recording. And our next session is April 15th, supporting online student success. We hope to see you there if you're able to join us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.